Good morning, everyone. I'm delighted to be here with you. My name is Ben Azvine. I'm head of security research in BT, and I often think that I have the best job in the world because it's a very exciting time for cybersecurity, both in terms of threats and opportunities. And I think for the first time in my life, my children don't think I have a boring job. Cybersecurity is actually quite an exciting area to be in right now. So today, I'd like to talk to you about some of the research we're doing in BT around how we could leverage the value of AI for cybersecurity, of course, very relevant to the subject of this conference, NFV and SDN. And one of the dreams that a lot of researchers have for SDN-type network is to create a self-healing, self-immune system. And with the capabilities that I can see in SDN being deployed, I think it's possible. But the question is, how do we do it? And of course, on the other hand, given that NFV and SDN-type networks will be using a lot of artificial intelligence for controlling and leveraging the agility that these networks give us, the question is, what kind of threats, new threats, do they introduce into our networks to be exploited by the bad guys? So just a very quick high-level overview of what we see out there in terms of the threat environment. We deal with around 4,000 cyber attacks a day on our networks. And this is going up. The number of attacks is going up. We remove around 2 million threats from our network every month. And there are really two reasons for this, in my view. One reason is that the criminals are getting very good at what they're doing. The hacktivists, they're getting very organized. And they're coming up with new weapons to attack us with that. And at the bottom of this slide, you will see the kind of generations of threats that we're dealing with. The second reason is new technology. The rate of adoption of new technology is at an unprecedented rate right now. And NFV and SDN and SD-WAN and so on are no exceptions. So companies, in their drive to achieve more agility, they're adopting these technologies very, very quickly. And it's hard to keep up with the pace of the threats that exist. So my job is to sort of think ahead and look at, in 5 years' time, what kind of defenses do we need? What kind of threats do we need to deal with? And then come up with some solutions. And I share some of these solutions with you in this presentation. So we definitely need to look at the intersection of AI and cybersecurity, both for NFV and SDN networks, but also for 5G, all other types of networks too. And so I started a comprehensive survey of this area. And to be able to answer the question of what's the impact of AI on cybersecurity, you need to look at these 4 quadrants. So on the top left, we're really thinking about how can AI enhance the security of our networks in the future. And that's a very exciting area. I call it cognitive cyber defense. And I'm going to show you some examples of what we're doing in this space that will become capabilities in the future that we will certainly deploy. But also you need to understand how the bad guys will be using AI, how AI can be weaponized. And if we've learned anything from the last decade is that the hacktivists are right up there in terms of technology. You know, if you think about ransomware, for example, ransomware is based on a technology that was designed to protect data. And it's being turned on its head, and now it's being used to extract ransom from victims. And there is no doubt that AI will be used by the hackers. It already is being used, and I'll cover that in a minute. So it's important to know and find out what are the possible ways AI could be weaponized. But also vulnerabilities of AI are important. when people talk about machine learning, they often don't talk about the fact that they have some inherent vulnerabilities. I'll touch on this in a minute or two. And then, of course, when we're talking about AI systems, often we're talking about machine learning systems requiring large volumes of data, and we have to plan for what happens if these systems are compromised. And that goes into the area of encryption and homomorphic encryption and so on, which is quite an exciting area. I don't have time to cover it today. So I'm going to cover those three areas first. We did a recent survey on the good use of AI, the good impact of AI on cybersecurity and the bad impact of AI. And these are some of the findings we've had. So clearly we're seeing in the short term AI being used to create better malware. We're seeing a lot of fake information out there. We will see in the midterm more fake personas, more fake profiles, more sophisticated social engineering attacks based on AI-generated information. And we will also, in the very long run, the sort of doomsday scenario, we will see these evil AI bots on our network capable of doing quite sophisticated strategic planning and deception to get around our defenses. On the good side, and I'm hoping the good side keeps half a step ahead of the bad side, on the good side, we're looking at, right now, we're deploying deep learning systems to help us find anomalies on our network. And these are getting very, very accurate. But there are some caveats in there, which I'll come back to. In the medium term, we'll see a lot of sort of good bots, if you like, software agents. 20 years ago, I used to work on software agents. They're coming back. These are self-contained AI programs capable of learning, reasoning, planning, scheduling, optimization. We will see more of these roaming on the networks, doing some local, taking some local intelligent actions. And in the long term, as I mentioned earlier, we're looking at creating AI systems that predict attacks, that find early signs of attacks, and take action. Now, of course, the take action part is quite sensitive. We have to be careful what action we take. The culture isn't there for AI systems to take action and shut down half the internet connections in a country yet. And I don't think it will ever be there. So the question is, how do we do that? And I'm going to point to some solutions in there. So on this, let's go deeper, a little bit deeper about what's our evidence. So on the question of fake everything, this is an example of a machine learning, a neural network system that can automatically create a completely fake image. So the image you see on the right-hand side is the result of a neural network learning features of more than 50,000 faces and then combining them to create a completely new face. That face on the right-hand side is not of a real person. It's completely fictitious. And through the years, the technology has improved. From 2014 to 2017, you see the resolution that the images can be created are getting better. And of course, you've heard of the deep fake problem. Deep fakes are movies that superimpose anyone's head on anyone's character, anyone's body, and that's creating a lot of problems. So we see in the short and medium term lots of misinformation, lots of social engineering attacks based on fake personas. And AI systems are getting very good at this. There's another characteristic of AI systems that is not well understood and well publicized, and that is machine learning systems particularly are susceptible to a kind of attack called poisoning attacks. So what that means is that you train a neural network to do something very well, classification, clustering, whatever it is. And by introducing a small amount of noise in the input data, you can get them to do something completely different, and in some cases catastrophically different. So this has been shown by researchers working on self-driving cars. Now, these self-driving cars essentially have cameras that recognize traffic signals. And researchers have shown that by placing tapes, simple tapes, black and white tapes, on strategic locations on these traffic signs, you could actually make the camera misrecognize a stop sign for something else, turn right or turn left, or at the bottom right, by putting some small noise in the picture, not recognize it at all. So in the bottom right picture, you'll see that the stop sign hasn't been picked up by the image recognition system. Now, this is called the poisoning attacks, and certain algorithms in AI suffer from this kind of attack. And when you deploy AI in your system, or machine learning in your system, you've got to plan for these. You've got to test these properly, and you've got to be fully aware of the limitations of some AI algorithms. Of course, the solution to this is not to use just one type of algorithm, use a variety, and then make your decision based on a collection of results rather than just result from one type of algorithm. So I am telling you all this not because I don't believe in AI, it's because I think AI has a huge power to help us secure our future networks. But also, I'm not delusional. I know that AI systems have limitations. I know, for example, that machine learning systems are statistically very impressive. But is that good enough for security? So this is an example of an image recognition system that was trained to associate captions with pictures. So you give it a few million pictures with captions, a neural network, and then you give it a new picture and it's supposed to come up with a description of that picture. And in this case, it's clearly come up with the wrong conclusion. A young boy is holding a baseball bat is not the correct conclusion. Now, most people tell you that their machine learning systems are 99% accurate. And that is true. You can get 99% accuracy on machine learning systems. But is that good enough for security? And from where I am, it is not good enough for security. So we've got to somehow plan for the limitations that AI systems have in terms of accuracy. And of course, because we've all watched, Terminator and catastrophic movies that AI is going to take over the world, we kind of have slightly exaggerated expectations of what AI systems are capable of doing. And at the heart of it, AI systems still are quite primitive in my view. They don't really understand what they're doing. They simply replicate what you've told them to do. And so they don't have any common sense knowledge. So if you deploy AI systems, don't expect them to get everything right. And so all of this survey that we've done have led us to believe that actually, if you want to use AI systems in your networks in the future, what you have to do, certainly in the short and medium term, is get AI to augment your capabilities rather than replace them. So don't take all your security operations center out and replace it with an AI system that a vendor says is 99% accurate. Try to actually get AI systems that help your experts come up with better ways of finding early signs of attacks. So we call this intelligence augmentation. And the picture down there of Iron Man is a good way of thinking about this. So there are two types of AI out there. One is Terminator, and the other one is Iron Man, right? Terminator is completely artificial. Iron Man is a man surrounded by technology, turned into a superhuman. And I think that's more realistic when it comes to security. So I want to show you a few demos of our technologies that hopefully solidifies in your head what I'm talking about. So if I can get this to work. So how do you get AI systems to work with humans to make your networks more secure? This is an example of an SDN network that is connected to the internet. And what we will see in a minute is a denial of service attack on a device on this network. And what you will see here is that the red dots are malicious sites, the blue dots are legitimate sites. You have a controller, you have a central switch, and you have the dumb switches, if you like, in the forwarding plane. And what happens is that the malicious sites find a vulnerability in a device, install a malware that continuously requests from the controller a routing table. And that routing table is essentially what it's doing is launching a DOS attack. And what happens is that the link between the controller and the switches will become affected, both in terms of quality of service, but also it could actually bring the controller to a halt, and therefore make the the controller redundant in the case of this SDN network. And so the question is, how do you actually stop such attacks? And the first thing that we do is that we have systems like this that can capture all the data and present that information to an expert. So that's the first thing. This system is developed by us. It's called Nexus, and we use it for graph analytics. So we take the information from, in this case, an SDN network, and visualize it. And so behind it are algorithms that are finding the anomalies in the network. So in order for us to go beyond just visualizing what we're doing in an SDN network, we need to find how that attack started. And for that, we've developed a number of other tools. This one is called Saturn. And Saturn is a bit like Minority Report. It's a system that allows our Security Operations Center analysts to bring data from multiple sources, combine them to find out what's happening. And this is an example of an attack on a device on our network. The attack started with a machine in the UK. You can actually see a red dot in the UK, or half a red dot in the UK. And at 6 p.m., we saw an anomaly in our network. So our algorithms found an anomaly. And now it has alerted one of our experts to investigate. And that expert is investigating. You don't see the expert. It's on this side. The expert is actually driving this investigation. And what happens, if you actually see what happens at 6 o'clock, suddenly that red dot in the UK, which is 8.90.8.13, suddenly gets access to a lot of our machines. And the question is why? And in order for the expert to find out why, they have access to all the information, all the data sources on our network. They load more data, they rerun the data through our system, and actually you find that it's not just one machine in the UK that is causing the problem. It's actually a botnet. I think that location is China, is launching a botnet attack on that particular device on our network. And so that in itself is quite valuable. What we then do is we use AI. What you see on the right-hand side is an AI algorithm that's looking for similarities. And by definition, if you find all the similarities, anything that's not similar will be an anomaly. So what happens in this case, the analyst tells the AI algorithm, find similar things, And all the things that don't go into the clusters, the multicolored clusters in the middle, are anomalies. And anomalies then point to 2 botnet attacks on a particular device, one launched from China, one launched from California, simultaneously attacking one of our servers, could be an SDN controller, and this is an early sign of an attack. So once we know which server is under attack and where it's coming from, it's easy to deal with in this case. All right? So that's one thing, allowing our analysts to get information and AI to help them to find an anomaly in our network. This was done within 3 minutes. Usually these things take weeks to do. So that's one of the ways you could actually get AI system to help find early signs of an attack. The other example I want to show you is a system that we deploy at a much deeper layer in our network. And this is, again, using the same technology called Nexus. What we do with this is we take a deep learning network and train it on normal network traffic. It could be an SDN network, it could be MPLS network. It works on all types of networks. And what it does is that once it learns the normal behavior, then we actually put it on the live network. And what it comes back with are these spikes. And these spikes are what the algorithm thinks are abnormal, or deviating from the normal behavior of the network. And this is a continuously learning system. And so what happens is that, in this case, the analyst is able to click on these anomalies. And the trick with this kind of systems is that you have to have a very small number of anomalies. Otherwise, you flood the screen with anomalies. And that's part of the problem with a lot of the vendor products today. They just give you lots of logs. And those logs actually make the security operations center less efficient, because they're flooded with lots of information. So what this system does, it creates a very small number of anomalies. It then presents those anomalies. The investigators give the algorithm some feedback. With that feedback, the system gives more information. And in this case, what happens is that we found an early sign of a botnet again. So those attacks I showed you on the SDN network actually could come from botnets. These systems are looking at preventing those attacks on the SDN network by finding the botnets early in the life cycle of a cyber attack. So another thing that we're working on is we're looking at how biological viruses propagate through populations and trying to replicate that for future networks. And this is an example of a learning system that learns the topology of a network, and then you introduce a virus. The red dot is an infection or a virus at any point in this network. And the question that we want to ask is, how long does it take for that virus or malware to get to a critical point on our network? And in the case of SDN, it would be a controller. So we can learn the topology of a network based on the data we collect from that network, and then use this technology based on biological viruses to find out how long do we have to respond to a particular type of malware, and what links do we need to disable to give us more time or stop the attack altogether. The gray dots are treated elements in the network. So red dots are infected, yellow dots are not infected, and gray are treated. So what we can do with this kind of technology is we basically do simulations. lots and lots of simulation based on real data from the network to understand how long do we have to respond to an attack, how infectious is a particular type of malware. And you can actually design new types of malware and release them in this environment. So that's another way we're using AI to help us shape our response to an outbreak of a malware. And finally, what I want to do is I want to show you a technology that we're working on. This is obviously very exciting. We have 15 security operations centers around the world, and they're working 24/7. And often for investigations, we need to have people from different geographical locations collaborating with each other. So this is a virtual environment. It's like a NASA control center in a virtual space, and the players or the actors in this environment can join from anywhere in the world. So what you see here is our own AI tools, which I've shown you earlier, being deployed in a virtual environment. And this virtual environment can be created within half an hour for each investigation. Each investigation could have its own virtual security operations center. And what the person at the bottom left is doing, he's creating a personal space based on shared information for all the security operations center. And once he does the investigation, if he finds something useful, he puts it back on the big screen for somebody else to take over. Or in some cases, he requires help. So he could be a network security expert, he may require an application security expertise and so on. And so at that point, he simply throws the results of his investigation over to a member of the team that could be anywhere in the world, and you will see that in a minute. And through doing this, we not only make the use of these tools very easy, but also we create a training environment for our future security experts. So I've gone way over my 20 minutes. I hope I've given you some hope that AI can actually be very, very useful to secure future NFV and SDN networks. I hope I've also given you some reality about what the limitations of AI systems are. We have a lot of operational experience in use of AI. I've been working in AI for 25 years, and I see a lot of misinformation out there about what AI can and cannot do. I'm happy to talk to any of you after this talk. If you have any questions about any of the systems I've shown you, or you want to know more about how we've operationalized some of these systems. And to end, I'd like to leave you with this quote. I truly believe that AI is going to transform the way we do security, but I think that in the medium to long term, in terms of business benefit, I think we should be working on AI systems that help humans find anomalies and still maintain the expertise that humans have, but allow them to deal with much larger volume of information, a much bigger number of cases, rather than completely replace them. And I'm a very pragmatic person in this space. And the reason I say this is because I think that will truly enhance the accuracy and eventually the service we provide to our customers, rather than just replacing entire set of people with AI systems. So with that, I'd like to thank you and have a good day.